Hello everyone, my name is Kaluna Spitfire and I'm a variety streamer on Twitch. One of my favorite games to play is 7 Days to Die, and I like to make XML changes to the Twitch integration so that I can create my own spawns and things like that for my chat. Today I'm going to show you how to create your own spawn using things that are currently in the game. So creating a new type of zoo or a new grouping of zombies. We're not going to create a new entity yet, I'll do that in a future video, but one that already exists. You're not editing the entity, you're just creating a new spawn type so that you can get the different groups or whatever that you want specifically. And so let's dive in. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is go to your game in Steam, and you're going to right click and you're going to go to manage and then browse local files. That's going to bring up this, wherever your game is stored. So once you're in there, I do recommend you have your mod file already pre-made. If you don't have one, just go ahead and do new folder and make it say mods, just like this with a capital M. Then you're going to go into data, then config, and then when you're in here, you're going to open up 4 different files. You're going to open up entity classes, right click and edit. I do recommend having Notepad++. It's much easier to see things, find errors and things like that. It's completely free, and I do have a video on how to add it. I will link it in the panel above on the right. You want entity classes. You're going to want game events. You're going to want sounds, and you're going to want Twitch, which is behind me. But Twitch. Once you have those open, it's going to look like this here at the top. There's a couple other files you want though. You're going to want to go back to your 7 days file and your mod folder. You're going to want to create a folder in your mod folder. You might not have this until you start your game. Don't touch this. Just leave it alone. It's what the Fun Pimps have created so that it spawns your mods. Anyway, you're going to create a new folder. I've already done this. And inside that folder, you're going to have some XML files. And so the very first one is going to be your mod info file, and then you're going to have a folder that's called config with a capital C, and inside there you're going to have a Twitch file and a game events file. I will show you what those look like, and if you've never created one before, when you are in here, you can do file new, and you can create one and save it in there with those names. So saving it as twitch.xml, gameevents.xml, or modinfo.xml, looking just like these titles that I have above. I've already created mine, so I usually have a file as well that people can copy and look at on my Discord. The link to my Discord is going to be below, but just so you guys have that accessible, I'll also try to add it to my Ko-fi. So you guys, for free, so you guys can access it. Just to have an example to download that's like plain. Okay. You do need to have this file in order for your mod to work. And I really recommend creating a folder like this for mods, because if you don't have that, every time your game updates, you will lose all your updates if you do it directly in the files, or if you need to ever verify your files because something's not going right, you're going to lose all this work. I really, really, really recommend doing a mod folder like this. In your modinfo.xml that you create, you're going to make sure that you have a name here. Make sure it doesn't have a space. You do need an underscore or something like that, or it can just be one word for the name. The display name here can be anything you like, can include spaces and whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then your version, I like to do whatever the game version is, and then if I change it to be edited in some way, I'll just add a 0.1, 0.2, whatever. And then for description, basically what does it do? We're going to talk about doing some different animal ones. So I put spawns a random zoo of animals, but whatever your spawn does, that's what you want to include, and author name being this. Now I will show you the entire thing, but everything in green is like just for your information, it's not really needed to be typed in. Everything in blue that you can see here is the part that you need to include. So like I could delete all of this and it doesn't matter. But the parts in blue and red do matter. But I'll just scan through this so that you guys can have access to reading that in case you need it for your information. Inside your mod folder as well, inside the new spawn that you've created, obviously call this file whatever your new spawn is. If it's a spawn zoo, call it that. And then, so that's where your mod info file would be. Inside the config is going to be these two files, which is twitch.xml and gameevents.xml. So those are recreated over here, and I just have an example on each of them that I'm going to just showcase for you, and you can copy. I'm going to back up so you guys can see everything, but you can copy everything that you see here. Some of these things are required and some are not. For example, streamer only is not required. Respawn is not required. It's going to assume that these are false and that they don't happen if you don't include them. But I will go over what they all do. So in game events, we have basic setup as well. You do need this entire part here before you can start creating your own actions. That needs to be at the top, and this needs to be at the bottom. Okay. For Twitch events, it's this part that needs to be here and this part that needs to be here. All of this inside is the created event that you're making. Okay, so you might not have as much as me. This is all stuff I've created and I'm going to use and show you guys how to make. All right. So we're actually going to do the game events file first because Twitch file is actually the easiest part, but you do it last. So I'm going to teach you just a little bit about the theory behind this, just so that it makes a little bit more sense. What you're doing is in the game events, you are telling the integration, what do you want to trigger? What do you want to spawn? How many of that do you want it to spawn? Do you want it to come with a sound? Do you want it to come with a group? Do you want it to be random? How do you want it to look? That's what the game event is, the event that you want to happen. Twitch.xml is what do you want people to see on the Twitch overlay? Do you want it to be bits? How many do you want it to be? Do you want it to be PP? Do you want it to be SP? Do you want it to be available for how much for cooldown? How much for, is it only going to spawn on the streamer? Is it only going to happen for whatever reasons? All of those things. That part is the Twitch side of things. Okay. So we're going to start with game events. Game events is going to look at your entity class, which is the spawned thing, your demo, your bear, your whatever you're spawning in, that is an entity. And you're going to hook into that, see how it says entity names, and you're going to find the name of the entity that you want to use from entity classes, if that makes sense. And then spawn count is obviously the number. Sounds is the file you're going to reference if you want a specific sound to happen. Now they have a classic Twitch bad spawn that tells you that it's a bad thing happening. But you might also want a sound that says it's a demolition alert sound. Okay, because I'm spawning a demolition zombie. That makes perfect sense. If I'm spawning a bear, I want it to sound like a bear, perhaps. But if you're spawning something that you want it to sound different, you want to do a silly sound, you can do that. So you can pull whatever sound that exists in the game and just use that. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to show you is how to do a single entity or more of one of the same type, or like a random one of that same type. So basically what you want to do is have this section already filled out. It's going to look exactly like I have it here. I'm just going to let you look at it. You can pause the video to copy it if you want to. If you don't want to do that, the other way you can do it is I did ask you to open up the game events file, and you can go and find demo, for example. So Control F is how you get find, and you're just going to go until you find, okay, spawn demo. Yeah. Okay. So you can copy some of these. Now see how simplified it is. It's very simplified. This is because they want it to be streamlined, and so they've streamlined some pieces of it. Mine is a little bit bigger because I'm adding other pieces to it. And see how it goes to template, boom. See how this is where they have all of the things that I have as well. They even have delay. They have all sorts of stuff going on there. So you can pull this and copy what you like and delete the parts that you don't like. The basic part, if you got it, just don't use this delay because that's the demolition part that delays when it starts exploding. But you could do this part, just include this at the bottom, this backslash ending the action part. And you could just delete this section if you wanted to copy and paste, something like that. It's basically the same thing, so copy and paste is your friend. If you have errors anywhere, you probably forgot this ending part and things like that. So just keep that in mind. All right, so for my spawning excitement here, I decided I wanted to spawn 20 demolition zombies and call it a demo crew 20. So I gave it that name. In here, inside these quotes, you can call it anything you want, just demo crew, demo 20, whatever you want to do. In here, you're going to find the name of the zombie or animal that you want to spawn. And over in your game, in your entity classes, you're going to Control F to find. And so demolition. And here's where you find the name, entity class name. You're going to take that entire section and copy it, and you're going to put that into yours. Whatever, I already have it obviously, but that's how you would do it, copy and paste. Now, if you wanted to pull a random one, maybe you want it to be a chance of a demolition zombie or a chance of maybe a bear. This is, you have to find the one that says its name. Spawn bear. Oh, I'm looking the wrong thing. I'm looking in something different. Gotta look in the entity classes or it won't work. Bear, animal bear. Copy that. Maybe I wanted to have a chance of spawning bears or demolition zombies. What I'm gonna do is put a comma here and then I'm gonna paste it. Do not put a space. If you put a space, it will only do the first thing you have. Spawn count. This is the number you want it to spawn. Pretty simple. Do you want it to be 1? Do you want it to be 5? Do you want it to be 20? It's going to spawn. In this particular case, it's going to pick one of these randomly, bears or demolitions, and then spawn 20 of those. 20 bears or 20 demos. So you can have that happen. So maybe I want to call this a demo bear, whatever. And say I want it to have the bad spawn sound like normal, and then I want it to be a demolition alert, or maybe I want it to be a very special sound alert, or maybe I want it to be a gun. I think I can do a gunshot sound, a nail gun fire. I could use the nail gun sound if I want to, and just pull that if I want to. The chainsaw sound you could use. Anything like that. You can pull any sound you want. It doesn't matter as long as it exists in the game. And they're going to change the name of it there. And then you should be done with that. So if you're doing a group, this one is one where it's already set up like a group. And this already exists in the game events. I just copied the Mountain Lion group one. So basically you would call it whatever you want. And you can decide here, this is an extra piece you can do for group spawns because it uses the spawn group template. You can decide if you want, how many you want it to do, of course, what zombie you want it to be. So that's, again, you go back into your entity class, the sound and how many, but maybe you want, as it gets to different game stages, to spawn more. So this would be, if it reaches game stage 115, instead of 5, it's going to be 2 more, so 7. If you reach game stage 215, it's now going to be 3 more than that, which would be 10. Okay, so that's like how it would go. You can change this game stage, and you can change this number as well. So if you want to do a group of a simple one, I believe you can also do comma and do the group here, where you could have it be randomized as well. As long as you don't have the space, it should pull one of them. Be aware you can only have one alert sound. It will automatically do a negative alert sound, but if you wanted to do a different sound, just like the demo sound or something like that, you can pull that. So that's another format you could pull. And the entire sequence for that looks like this. And the parts that you change would be inside the quotes of the names, the zombie or animal names you want to pull, the sound, how many game stages, and how many more you want them to add for that. Make sure you don't forget any of these backslashes or lesser and greater than symbols. They matter a lot. Spaces matter a lot as well. If when you save you get an error saying it can't save or something's wrong, you probably have a space where it doesn't belong, or you maybe forgot one of these. That's almost always the issue. Another group option that you have, if you scroll down to where I have this, I'm going to highlight it so you can see. This is if you want two different types of things to spawn. It's already designed in, so you might as well use the template. If you want more than two, I'm going to show you that later, but this is if you want two different types. So if you want animal bear and zombie bear to spawn in at the same time, you would have the first one, you'd change that name to whatever entity class you want, and then same thing for this one, whatever entity class you want. So say you want the bear and the demo zombie, you can have both happen at the same time. In this one, you can say, do I want 2 regular bears and 1 zombie bear? Do I want 5 zombie bears and 3 bears? You can do that. Now you could call this group whatever you want. Anything. Bear apocalypse, I can spell. You can call it that. Whatever name floats your boat. And again, you have this as an option. You do not have to keep these. You could delete these if you do not want extra to do it for different game stages. But again, if you want at stage 210, there to be an extra of 1. So that would be animal bear. If you want 2 extra bears and 1 extra zombie bear, same thing for this one. At this game stage, do you want extras of the first one and extra of the second one? See how it correlates to count 1 and then count 2. That correlates to zombie 1 and zombie 2. Once you've finished making your game events, however many you want, you're going to then go to your twitch.xml file. And you're going to have one of these for each thing that you want to have occur in your game events. If you'd like, instead, you could have your game event triggered by Twitch events file, which I have another video for. I can link at the top, but basically that would have things spawn for raids, subs, gifted subs, things like that. So if you don't have it in your Twitch, then you would have it there. For each thing, you're going to give it a unique name. Spawn zoo, perhaps in this case, if you are doing this, but maybe this is bears. Spawn. I have caps lock on for some reason. Spawn bears. Maybe we're going to call it spawn crazy bears. And then whatever game stage you want it to be in, it's going to stay in spawns because it's a spawn. If you want this to be starting in game stage 10, you could. If you want it to be game stage 25, 50, however difficult it is, the higher the game stage you want it to be. For reference, game stage 80 is where a spawn bear, normally one single bear, comes into the game. So if I did 50, that would be a lot, but maybe I want it to be earlier for something that's going to be for bits. So it's up to you. Now the event name, this is the part where you're going to go into your game events and you're going to copy whatever you called this. So in this case, I ended up naming it Bear Apocalypse. And you're going to pop that in there. Make sure you don't have any spaces. Point type, is this bits, PP, or SP? You can put that whatever you like. And then how many of those do you want it to cost? Is it positive? Most spawns are not positive, so you're going to keep that false most likely. Does it add to the cooldown? You probably want to keep that to be true because that's the cooldown at the very, very top. So eventually you'll get a cooldown to trigger based on how big or crazy the things are that get sent to you. This is the cooldown add amount. The bigger the number here, the quicker you're going to reach the end of cooldown. So the bigger the spawn, the worse the spawn, the bigger the number you want it to be. If it's just a simple zombie, maybe it's just 10. right? If it's crazy difficult zombie, maybe you want it to be like 50. For something like this, maybe 200 or more. Cooldown. Now this is specific to cooldown for this event itself. So if you want this to be able to be triggered constantly, and you don't want it to turn off, it would just be like a 1. Okay, 1 second. This is in seconds, by the way. If you want this to be like, okay, I want it to be able to be spawned, but then I want like a 10-minute break, 600 seconds. Cooldown blocked. Can it be triggered during a cooldown? And we want it to be blocked, so we want this to be true. We want it to not be able to be triggered, so true, because it's a spawn. Waiting block. So waiting is when the cooldown bar has filled up, but there are still things spawned that you haven't gotten rid of yet, and it's blocking other spawns from occurring during that time. I would keep this true if it's a spawn. Vote cooldown add. So this is when something spawns in, do you want it to add to the cooldown before a vote could trigger? So when people are spawning things, it creates a cooldown block so that like, okay, I want 60 seconds before a cooldown. I want 60 seconds before a vote could be triggered, because you don't want a boss vote happening at the same time as you're facing this perhaps. So you want to give yourself some time for that. So maybe it's 30 seconds, maybe it's 60 seconds, something like that. Now, these last parts, these 3 parts here, you do not necessarily need in here. You could just delete if you don't want them. But I'm going to tell you what they do. So respawn. So if you're doing something for bits, this naturally happens already for things that are bit spawns, but you don't have to do it. You could turn it off if you want to. This is how many times that thing would respawn if you are unalived by something other than this spawn, and you haven't had a chance to get rid of this spawn yet. So say this crazy bear spawns in, and you get unalived by a different zombie. You come back, you get your bag, the cooldown ends, this would re-trigger and it would come back in. We typically want to do this for people who have spent real money, so bits, on a spawn, because it kind of is a feel bad if it spawns in just as somebody else gets you with a normal zombie and you're like, well, I spent bits and I didn't get to see it really even. That's where this comes in. Now you can choose how many times you want it to respawn at a minimum. 1, 3, 6, 10, whatever. So maybe 3. And then max respawn. How many you want to do it at most? Do you want it to be 100? You want it to keep coming back until you manage to get rid of all of them? Go for it. If you don't want it to keep coming back, maybe you want it exactly 3 times and then end, done, we're done with that, then put it at 3 at the same. Make sure whatever your max is that it's the same or bigger than your minimum. Otherwise, that makes no sense. The second part here is streamer only. Now, this is because sometimes you don't want a spawn to happen on the people you're playing with because it's just ridiculous. And that might cause some issues for them, or maybe they just wouldn't want to play with you anymore or something like that. And honestly, they're not getting the bits for this action. They're not making any money. They didn't choose to put it there. So some actions I make streamer only. They can only be spawned on me because of that fact. If you want it to be streamer only, put true. If you don't want it to be streamer only, you could just delete it, or you could make it be false. Now, these are just presets. Do you want it to be available to people during casual, standard, or hardcore? If you want all 3, put it just like I have it here, no spaces. If you want it to be only for casual, you would get rid of these ones. If you want it to be just standard and hardcore, you would get rid of this one, etc., whatever ones float your boat. When you're done, go ahead and save, and we are ready to test this in the game. Once you're in the game, you're gonna wanna hit F1, type DM, enter, F1 again, and then hit Q. Then you're going to press the Shift key and F6, and this menu will pop up. Then you're going to look up whatever you called it in your game events file. So let's look back really quick. In our game events file, we called this the Bear Apocalypse. So we're going to go in and type in Bear Apocalypse. Here it is. I'm going to spawn in. You can, in God mode, see, make sure they spawn the right number of things. In this case, it's spawned the 5 zombie bears and 3 regular bears, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. So there you go. And then you can press F1 again and type kill all, and it will then do that. And you are good to go. So that's showing how it works. If it doesn't show up in the menu, you did something wrong. If it doesn't show up. If they don't spawn in correctly, you did something wrong in your things and you need to go back. So if it doesn't show up at all, you probably have your mod info file wrong, would be my guess. Could also be your game event is wrong. If they spawn in but it's the wrong number or something like that, or they spawn the wrong thing, go ahead and double check what you typed in. Make sure there's no spaces, things like that. Make sure the name actually attaches to the thing you want. Then the other thing you can do is you're going to go into your Twitch, log in, activate everything on the other screen. I have 2 screens, so it's showing up on that screen and just hooking in. Then turn off progression. So make sure it says no here to test. Turn it back on if you want it on. But this means everything's going to show up for you in this menu right here. And as you can see, I have my demo crew in and then Crazy Bears here. It will all show up at the very top of the all section here, whatever you've made yourself. If it shows up in here, then you are good to go. Thank you guys for joining me on this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I can't wait to hear about what kind of spawns you guys make for your chat. And if you have any sorts of questions and things like that, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I also have a Discord and a Ko-fi in the links in the description. If you have questions or concerns, or if you want to show your appreciation for the video, feel free to do so on those social media accounts. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.